So what should I do? I don't know. I'm really quite drunk.
I drink and I know things. That's what I do.
Welcome back to Flagons and Dragons. I'm Jamie G, the Esquire with the fire, and I'm back in Westeros with Magnum Mills to talk about A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, the second spin-off of the Game of Thrones world, I guess we could say. On this episode here, we're breaking down the series premiere, season 1, episode 1, titled The Hedge Knight.
I think the title works very well for both of us. You are famously referred to as the Hedge Knight. You've known some good hedges over your time. You've known to enjoy them, and I may or may not have slept under a hedge at some point. So I've got that going for me, which is nice. You're checking out an episode of Flagons and Dragons, so you've got that going for you, which is super. We are presented by Regular Dudes Watch Stuff. You can find our content wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Find us on social media at Dudes Watch Stuff and on the web at dudeswatchstuff.com. Simple and easy to remember, just like the flaps, FLAPS. Follow, like, and please subscribe. If you had fun, please remember to touch the thumb.
From this point forward, there's going to be spoilers, full-on spoilers for this episode, all aired episodes of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. This includes any podcasts, articles, interviews, you name it. We're going to avoid book spoilers. We'll do our best to avoid spoiling anything from Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. And if you don't know, now you know.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
This is the Hedge Knight, Season 1, Episode 1, the first overall episode of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, originally aired January 18th, 2026. Directed by Owen Harris. It looks like he's directing the first 3 episodes of this season. Hasn't directed any episodes of Thrones or Hot D, but he did direct 4 episodes of Mrs. Davis, which I enjoyed, and 3 episodes of Black Mirror, most notably San Junipero, which is award-winning, a very big deal, widely regarded as the best episode of that series. So nice pedigree here. Looking forward to see what he can do in the Game of Thrones world. Episode was written by Ira Parker. He is also the showrunner, show co-creator with George R.R. Martin, and the executive producer. The short plot synopsis is: on his way to the forthcoming tournament in Ashford, Dunk meets a clever young boy named Egg, who offers to be his squire. Jamie G, I don't know about you, but I'm always careful if people just offer to be something when you meet them randomly somewhere. Like, hey, even if they're just like, hey, you want to be your best friend, always be a little cautious. So, I would take that with a little bit of caution. But how about the episode itself, man? Kind of overall thoughts here, initial impressions. How did it kind of match up to what you had, the picture in your head, your expectations going in after having just seen the trailer? Just for the record, Jamie G has not read the novellas while I have. So other than the trailer, you really didn't know what else to go off of going in. How did it kind of live up to the expectation you'd set for it?
I think it nailed it. I mean, it looked great, right? It was nice to be back in that world, back in that universe. It was pretty cool. I thought there was some humor in it. I thought they did a great job kind of setting everything up. And it wasn't a super long episode. It flew by. I remember it ended being like, oh, wow, that's it. But it was enough of a setup there to have me excited for the second episode. So you can already see there's going to be some fun to this one. I don't know that it had the same serious vibe as a Game of Thrones did. So I think for a more casual watcher, this could also be a good time. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great setup. Again, it looked good. All the acting was really good. My only gripe here, Mills, just a little bit, and we talk about this in different shows with like kid actors and actresses and stuff. Egg was just a little hard to understand. Definitely got to watch this with the words, the closed caption on, because he just like super high pitched voice coupled with that accent, and it was kind of quiet, so just a little bit hard to understand, which I think could be problematic here, just because I think he's gonna have some witty shit to say. So I'll just gotta watch that as it goes forward. But other than that, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think this is one where I did have to have the volume cranked. Like, you don't notice till something else comes on. You're like, oh, wow, that was a little loud. So overall, maybe the volume was a little low, but I've watched stuff with closed captions on forever just by habit now. So I didn't really run into that problem, but a good point to bring up. I really thought they did a good job for the most part. Again, I had a fairly good idea what this was going to be going in, but the shorter runtime, I guess, it slightly surprised me. I mean, that's the one thing. Originally, I think this was pitched as an animated series, but for the most part, back in the day, I think everyone pictured, oh, these will be great movies. The novella itself is only like 30,000 words or something. It's not a real long work here. So it makes sense that if they're going to stretch it out to 6 episodes, that we're going to be more around this 30-minute runtime. I think the entire season runs about 3.5 hours or so. So we're going to probably be hanging about right in this 30 minutes or so area for most of the episodes, 30, 35 minutes. Overall, like you mentioned all the Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon stuff. It always looks good. It always sounds good. They did, stick with most of the same look here, but the tone is a little bit different. We get the moment where they undercut the theme song with violent diarrhea. We get actual flashbacks, like kind of cutbacks, but they're done like a pure comedy, right? To Pennyworth, like slapping Dunk up and everything. Are you okay with that? Because it is a little bit jarring compared to the rest of Game of Thrones. But on the other hand, I think it fits for the comedic tone that they're going for, right?
Yeah, I think it set the tone for a less serious, you know, with some humor wrinkled in type of theme. And that was okay for me. So I kind of like it. I thought it worked for this setting.
Yeah, they tease it a little bit. You do have some guys who are kind of, badass fighters, but a lot of the times, Baratheon, the girls, everyone kind of like winds up being, a little bit softer than you think. Like the guy Plumber, when he's going in and trying to register for the tournament, he acts like he's giving him the fourth degree. He's like, I'm just fucking with you. You know what I mean? Like that's something that could have happened on Game of Thrones, but also fits here with this tone. So I'm kind of looking forward to some of that. Overall, do you think that they had good chemistry between the two main characters? I mean, that's going to have to carry the show. It's pretty close to a two-hander here. I really did think that they had very good interaction between Dunk and Egg, and it sounds like from the interviews I listened to that they really bonded in real life off screen. The actor who played Egg when they filmed this, I think, was only 9. So that's, it's a lot of work to ask someone of that age to carry the show. Obviously, the actor who played Dunk has not done a lot before, nothing of this scope. So I thought it was a pretty promising first showing, and I think they had good enough chemistry to carry the show, which is what we're going to need, right?
I think so too. And again, my only complaint was Egg's voice is just really high pitched. It was hard to hear at times. So definitely a closed caption one, which I watch almost everything in closed caption, so not a big deal. But you're depending on him. I think he's going to be the wittier one that says a lot of important stuff that's either funny or critical to moving the story along. So as where Dunk kind of slower, think about it kind of thing. So I definitely think there was good chemistry. I think you kind of saw that too on set a little bit towards the end when they see the shooting star, and he kind of says, Egg says it, and then Dunk tells him to go to sleep, but then it's like, wait, so that means only we are lucky, so I mean, I think that was kind of cool too. You got to see a little bit of that.
And that's a cool, like a lot of this is ripped verbatim from the book. Some stuff they did invent for this to pad it out a little bit, but that's actually a scene from the books, but it actually only happens in Dunk's head. Like Egg is asleep and that's what he thinks. So here they give Egg the line and keep him awake. And I think that's the kind of thing, you can do here, but you also have to do in a television show unless you're going to go with a narrator. You know what I mean? There's no other way to get to the inner monologue like that. So giving Egg some of that stuff certainly works. And he is that character in the book. I mean, he is, would remind you of a young Tyrion who's, his whip is as sharp as his rapier kind of deal. Like the boy has a way with words, but he also, he's not messing around. He does kind of seem to know what he's doing, riding the horse and preparing all that stuff and everything. So it looks like he also has the makings of actually being a good squire, which is fairly important. I'm sure you as an esquire understand that. Overall here, did they hook you enough? I mean, obviously, not going to spoil it here, but the first episode of Game of Thrones has a very, 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 very strong hook. To end the episode here, we get that kind of, the shooting star thing. Is that enough? Did they do enough here that, if episode 2 was available, you were immediately going to jump into it? Or is it like, oh, that was good, but, maybe not quite like the full hook like that?
Yeah, I think part of it is your mindset going in, because like I knew this wasn't going to be like a Game of Thrones type of thing, and I think after going through 2 seasons of Dragons, I was ready for something kind of shorter, less serious, and so I think for me they did do enough, but just kind of knowing for what it is.
Yeah, this seems to be like very rarely would I advocate for the show to drop multiple episodes on the same day. Usually it annoys me when you get something like The Boys, they only have 8 episodes, they'll drop 3 on the first day. So I'm like, oh man, that's almost half the season. But this is one I could have seen maybe just dropping 2 at once here. because this is a lot of a setup episode, or maybe you could even do the thing where you drop in and you start out with them already on an adventure, and then you kind of flash back to how they got together or something like that. So I think that it managed to land the plane for the most part, but there wasn't that like crazy hook where you're like, oh my God, I need to know what happens next right now. But again, it's not necessarily that kind of show. Let's move into the episode discussion. Most of the opening sequence where he buries Sir Pennytree is ripped straight from the books, right down to the rain. I thought it was played pretty well here. It was kind of an interesting opening. I thought it was gorgeous. You mentioned it being, nicely shot. We get a little bit of everything here. You get the dark and the rain, and it gets sunny. And we didn't get a lot of that. Like even dragons, when you're outside, it's kind of muted some of the colors and everything. So I think it's really nice to be out in the space and kind of in these bright spaces. And I think they do a pretty good job here of establishing both that Dunk is pretty loyal. He had real feelings for Pennytree, but Pennytree was a little bit of a dick, maybe, right? And that's where they get those quick flashbacks of him like, oh, he didn't beat me unless I deserved it, kind of thing, which was funny. Again, kind of setting the tone here. I definitely laughed when Dunk was trying to figure out what else he could do. He's like, well, I could go work in the city watch. And he's like, how would I be a city watchman, sir? Stop raping. And after what we saw of the city watch in both House of the Dragon and Thrones, I think that's pretty much what being an officer of the watch would be like. So I think all of it pretty much works. Again, we mentioned it here. The one thing is like, all right, the show's about to start. You hear the strings of the Game of Thrones theme start playing, and then we cut to Dunk behind the tree there, just having explosive diarrhea, which they showed they showed some of it. Put it that way. I don't know what they showed, but I don't know if I'd want to watch it when I was eating. What do you think? Was that like a good kind of undercutting of, like telling everybody, hey, this isn't going to be the typical Game of Thrones show, or was that maybe a little bit too much?
I think it might have been a bridge too far, but you know what, it worked, and it definitely startled me. Like I didn't know what was happening. I thought it was for a minute. I thought maybe something else was going on, but then you kind of just see like, I mean, dude, he had range too. I mean, those things were flying out of there. So
Yeah, that was projectile. It was.
is projectile and not great. I'm curious to see what they do with an opening. I mean, I know some people are like, they should stop, recycling it and think of something else and everything, but I don't know. It's just kind of become synonymous with it, and I enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to see what they do if they go with the Game of Thrones opening or if they do something else. But either way, a good show needs a good opening. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I think they might go the way we've seen some of these other shows where they really just kind of have a title card. But the difference is most contemporary shows can just use whatever music they want. But because of the way this is set, it's not like they can just go ahead and, let's use a Bob Dylan track or something like that. You know what I mean? They're pretty much limited to whatever music they create. And they definitely messed around with it here. Like it felt like at times they were going for a little bit of a Western thing, right? Some of the whistling and everything like that. Like that's what it reminded me of. And you're kind of going with a wolf and cub thing. You know what I mean? You have the I guess you couldn't call Dunk really the old gunslinger or whatever, but it's the bigger older guy taking the young cub under the wing kind of deal here. So it makes sense that they would go with something like that. I will say when we got the title card, it felt a lot like a video game, dude. Like a Red Dead Redemption 2 or something like that, where
Yeah,
kind
it
of like
did.
that was the opening scene, and then you get the little cut scene where you get the title card. He walks into the inn there, and that's where we meet Egg. Like that's literally how a good video game would open. I'm not necessarily complaining about that. I mean, some of these video games these days are basically 50-hour long movies that you can interact with more or less. I mean, they get real talent and directors to do these things. So I'm not saying like it's a bad thing, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. Anything else kind of on the opening scene here? Are you sad at all that Sir Pennytree is gone here? Like, do you want to see more of him in flashbacks, or do you think he kind of served his purpose?
I kind of do want to see a little bit more, and I'm not totally convinced we don't. I think there's probably some lessons that make Dunk who he is. And it's neat because you can actually use that as a way to kind of develop your character a little bit, which I think they're trying to do, and it's a nice way to kind of mix it in. So for me, I'm if it's done, it's okay, but I would rather they continue it a little bit because I enjoyed some of those little flashbacks.
I think I would enjoy that as well. That really wasn't an option famously on Game of Thrones. The showrunners were pretty much like, nope. I think we got the Maggie the Frog, the Cersei flashback that opened maybe season 4 or 5, and I think that was the only real flashback. Oh God, no, we had Ned too. Like so two. There were really two flashbacks, but one of them was kind of like people seeing through trees. I'm not sure where that falls on the letter of counting as flashbacks or not, but for the most part, it was a narrative device they didn't want to lean on, but they have access to it here. So I'm cool with that. And how about just the stuff between Dunk and Egg? We get the first scene here where they meet at the inn, and it's one of those things. Egg is like, you'd like him, Jamie G. He's like a lawyer here. Like, he's very careful in what he says. He never lies to Dunk, but he never really offers more information than he needs to. Like, at the end, he implies like that he might, be the stable boy or whatever, but he never actually says that he is, and that's why Dunk's confused
Yeah.
later. Well, what do you mean the innkeeper lady's not your mom? How did you like kind of the introduction here? It was a little bit short. We kind of do it in about three parts, but I thought this was a nice way to kind of dip the toe in. And again, this tracks with the novella.
I thought it was great. And I really like the intrigue and kind of him just give you can tell right away that Egg is going to be a lot smarter than Dunk. And it's just a matter of if he wants to use that power for good, or to manipulate. So far, it seems like he's using it for good. I like that there's a little bit of guessing going on for those that aren't familiar with the story or read the novellas. So that's pretty cool. But no, I thought it was really intriguing. I like how he just gives you just enough, but never cements it in. That's how you should always answer questions. Just answer it in the most vague way possible.
Definitely spoken like an Esquire there. And the one little bit of setup here at the end, we see the dude dropping the Targaryen coin. He's got the hair, so I would just say there's a decent chance that dude might come back around. Darren Targaryen, I believe, is his name. He is in the credits. And I love Dunk here. You get the idea, especially after he just had to evacuate. I love when he's given the choice between the duck or the lamb. He just goes with both, right? He definitely, I feel like that's going to be a solid runner here. Is Dunk just trying to eat as much as possible whenever he can, and I'm there for that.
Absolutely. And I even thought it was hilarious because, and talk about the seriousness coming down a few pegs. In Game of Thrones, you would have never had somebody like Dunk literally addressing somebody in royalty like he was doing with Baratheon there with like a jelly donut. It just would never happen, right? So I found that to be pretty cool. Just kind of toning it down a little bit, which I thought was awesome.
The only thing I can compare is when the Hound was doing again, super minor Game of Thrones spoilers here, but when the Hound and Arya were going through the Reach or whatever, and they went the one in, and that's where the Hound gave the big thing and had the fight for it. He wanted all the fucking chickens, remember?
Oh yeah,
I want
yeah,
all,
yeah.
like that was kind of the one when it wasn't really to royalty or whatever, but it was about food in an inn. So this just gave me a little bit of vibes of that. And that was always, again, some of the humor in Game of Thrones. So I think you're kind of keeping with the vibe here. I like the Dunk catch an egg on the horse here. The horse name is Thunder, a quality name. Also must be an NBA fan. I don't know if that was really why. I know George has named characters after New York Giants players and stuff like that before, but I don't necessarily know if that was a call out to anything. But you could definitely see Doug kind of connect with Egg when Egg says his mom was dead, right? Like, Egg never confirms straight up that he's an orphan, but he does say his mom died and Dunk was an orphan himself. So I think in that moment, that's when he started softening up and then maybe kind of considering the possibility you might take him on, right?
I think he saw a little bit of himself in Egg, remembering what it was like to want to be somebody's squire and kind of earn that place and everything. So I think he saw a little bit of that.
And I think they do a good job of setting up the fact that Egg will actually be a pretty good squire. He told Dunk that he could ride the horse better than Dunk, and I may or may not believe him. But we got some nice setup after Dunk gets to the camp. He goes to try to wash his clothes, and he's so clueless. He just at one point is literally just trying to beat the stink out of his clothes. I feel like that's something like Homer Simpson would have done if Marge was gone for a week or something. That's how he would do laundry. And then when Egg comes back at the end, we see Eggs. He's caught some fish. He's cooking it up. He cleaned his clothes. He helped the horse out. Would have raised his pavilion if he had one. So I think they've done a good job of establishing that Dunk needs Egg, and Egg will be a good squire, right?
Absolutely. And there's so much value he can give, not just in, the fact that he can do all this stuff, but I also think there's a deeper level of value that you're going to see in Sir Dunk's quest for knighthood.
And I just love that he is Sir Dunk, but he's still not quite sure what to call himself. That's another runner throughout the episode before he kind of embraces Sir Duncan the Tall at the end when he introduces himself to Egg formally. I loved everything with Dunk arriving at the camp. Didn't that feel like classic Game of Thrones? You roll in and you got all the different stuff. Dudes are training, dudes are eating. You have the camp ladies, the followers kicking around. Everybody's got something going on. There's a bunch of cool stuff to work with. I thought that looked really good, was really cool, and felt very Game of Thrones like. I think it made it feel like this is definitely part of that world. I think they did a good job of that.
100%. And you liked being right in the middle of it. And it was a cool contrast from kind of the countryside and the rolling hills and the beautiful greenery that we saw kind of in those opening scenes as he's wandering to the inn. And then again, once he gets in town there. So definitely cool. Lots of stuff to look at. And put you right in there. And it kind of got you excited about like whatever games these are going to be, right? Like it was that was pretty cool.
Yeah, a good turn. We've seen tournaments in both Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. Yeah, they are a big deal, even more so here in the non-war times of Westeros. I love the whole thing with the plumber here. That's the guy that Dunk had to check in with to try to register for the tournament. I love how he kind of rakes him over the coals, and then he's just basically like, "Dude, I'm fucking with you. I really don't care." But he also lays out the stakes. If you lose, you got to give up your shit. You give up your horse, your armor, your sword, and then you either lose it or you got to ransom it back. I think we got that line in the trailer when he's like, "Oh, you got coin for that," and Dunk's like, "Oh God, no." I'm pretty sure that was also in the trailer, but funny, but also does a good job of setting up the stakes here, right? Like Dunk even pretty much says, like, "Look, dude, if I lose once, I am in deep doo-doo here." So kind of subtle, but I think it was a great scene in that it was very funny and entertaining, but they also got some exposition out here.
Yeah, and just his raw honesty and the fact that he's unpolished, he's not a con man, kind of highlighting his character, right? Like we're so used to the Game of Thrones world where like somebody's always got a trick up their sleeve or an angle. I'm not so sure he does. I think it's just raw, uncut honesty, in just kind of in a simple format, and it helps me root for him a little bit, honestly.
Right. I mean, in this case, maybe it's not bad that it's not more complex than that. I think Dunk is, it's kind of all there on the surface, right? Like in Game of Thrones, you almost assume characters have their own motivations. They're up to some nefarious angle. They're doing something here. With Dunk, it just seems like he is, an actual, genuine, good human being dropped into the world of Westeros, and we honestly didn't get a lot of those, right? Even the Starks, end up being a little bit more gray. There was not a lot of black and white in Westeros, but it feels like Dunk is, one of the good ones, and even points that out to a couple of our favorite ladies, right? The camp followers. He kind of is like, hey, maybe I'm different. I love the ladies in this one. I thought they were very entertaining. We had gotten a decent amount of the interaction with them in the trailer when he goes looking for the Sir there to go ahead, Sir Manfred, to vouch for him. I love the whole little bit there, like just the ladies just talking about like, man, I think he likes banging other people's wives more than us. But I mean, he's on a mission to turn the world red. And kind of, I'm there for that. I don't know if I think who was the last person to do that? Was that in South Park when Cartman thought he was a redhead and then he tried to turn everyone into a redhead? I think that's about the
Right.
only other time I've seen this plot in television before. But I don't know. I think I'm there for it. Now, obviously, those ladies are because they're already red.
Yeah. Again, humor tied in with kind of the way of life back then, and just the fact that the world moves pretty fast for Duncan even back then, and his way of navigating it. It's fun to highlight some of the humor around it.
Yeah, you can tell he is a little bit awkward with the ladies, and that absolutely tracks with his character in the book. Again, this is an interaction that I do not believe is in the original novella, but I think it really tracks, adds a little bit here, and obviously he comes back to them again. And again, like him being all surface level, they're kind of making fun of him, giving him a shit. He's like, hey, I'm just asking for a little help here, and they seem to take pity on him, and that's one of the things like because he is kind of earnest and forthright here in the novella, it works for him. Like people kind of help him and tell him what to do. Whereas like if they didn't, you get the idea. Like that's why he needs Egg, right? Like he's just kind of trying to do this, but he doesn't really know what he's doing like at all, and it shows. So he's kind of dependent on the kindness and generosity of others to kind of give him the boost he needs here. But he goes about it again in a very like honest way where you would want to help the guy because you feel like if you help him, he'll owe you one. And probably, when a dude is named Sir Duncan the Tall, probably a good one to have owed for you in this day and age, right?
100%.
Yeah, you want to have a favor coming back for him. We briefly met Sir Stefan Fossaway. That's a dude who was training with his cousin there and knocked him down and then wanted to take him run at Dunk. And then his cousin is the one who comes back around and brings Dunk to Sir Lionel's tent there. And shout out, this is a very George name. He is Raymond, but he's like Raymun. Like you gotta love George R.R. Martin. Like at a certain point, he's like, I'm done trying to make up new names, so let's just spell existing names differently. And I feel like a lot of people have taken that mantle up and run with it in real life, and so now people have a lot of weird spellings on their names. So I'm
They
blaming
really
them when I
do.
misspell them.
Raymond.
Yeah, I mean, there doesn't need to be five A's in there or whatever. So that's kind of, again, a little bit of a teaser, I think, for a character we are going to get more from. And then we also see Dunk go to the Mummer show there, that puppeteer thing. It's a very brief scene. I will say that I think we will see some of the people involved in that again. But I think it's also the scene that does the best job of illustrating just how big this dude is when you see the crowd shots. Like they do
Yeah.
a great job of making it look like Dunk is just towering over these people, right? I think for the most part, it's tough to really get the scale because I mean that's one of the things like in the novella. Every time people see him, the first thing they say is, "Oh my God, this is a gigantic human being." And I think on screen, it's kind of tough to really make that come across sometimes. So I think this is one of the better scenes just because of the crowd. You were able to see like, okay, this dude really is that much bigger than most people.
Well, it was the most effective thing they did all episode because earlier in the episode they tried to get him hitting his head on the doorway coming in and out. And while that worked a little bit, nothing was as powerful as seeing him literally be head and shoulders towering above everyone. And Egg obviously he's going to be huger than, but it's way bigger than. But it's nice to see. It was nice to see how huge he was in contrast to people his own age. So that was I think that was the most effective thing they did to kind of illustrate that. Because if somebody's name's going to be Sir Duncan the Tall, you better be pretty freaking tall, like Too Tall Jones.
Well, it makes you think, right? Like, I don't know, I don't want to exactly spoil anything, but, he talks about you're going to have like armor for this, right? But you have to imagine how much more is his armor worth to him than anybody else because nobody else can wear his armor, nor can he wear anyone else's armor because of his size, right? So it's like one of
Right.
those things when you get something custom made, like Shaq's bed, right? Like Shaq famously has like these gigantic beds because he's a 7 foot tall, humongous human being. So when you're that big, you need stuff that's built for you. So losing his stuff, I think, is an even bigger deal for Sir Dunk than most other people because it's way harder to replace.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's virtually worthless to everyone else. That's the crazy thing too.
Yeah, he can like melt it down or whatever, but yeah, no one else could actually wear it. So again, it's kind of a big thing. Like that's literally his name, the Tall. If that's going to be your defining characteristic, then I think it needs to stick out. And I think that scene did a pretty good job of it. And then Raymond takes him to the party at Sir Lionel's tent. What do you think, man? Where does the Laughing Storm kind of check in on the terms of names? Like that seems more like an album name or something like that, or the name of a tour, right? Like as a personal nickname. I don't know, man. Maybe I'll grow into it a little bit. I mean, it is taken from the books. This whole scene in the tent, for the most part, is made up for the show. Definitely enjoyed it, but the name is from the books there. What do you think, man? The Laughing Storm. Would you like that if that was your nickname? I can't decide.
Again, I think I like it in this show. I don't know that I would totally. It's hard. It's going to be hard to get a lot of respect with that one, but I expect him to be pretty entertaining if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean that's I think just going to because the Baratheons are headquarters at Storm's End there, so I think that's how they're trying to mix it in that fashion. But definitely enjoyed Sir Lionel here, and shout out Raymond here. He takes our guy Dunk in there, even though he is just doing the squiring duties. Kind of leaves Dunk be, and again. Great runner of Dunk eating everything here. Like, dude, the shot of him grabbing that big ass, I don't know what kind of bird it was, but that leg. I mean, that like it reminds me of like the famous photo of Andre the Giant holding a regular sized beer can. It just looks tiny. Like, dude, that leg to look that big in that man's hand must have been gigantic.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a
That's a hunk of
huge hunk of
meat.
meat there, dude. And yeah, I just love that I love that again, the runner with him eating so much. That's pretty awesome. It's a little weird with the whole shit scene to open it up, but I do like the fact that that it's kind of a runner with him and even with this one, I mean, he's, again, we're so used to like he's gonna have a problem here, and it ends up he's munching this jelly donut thing or whatever it was, and it ends up he ends up bonding with this guy, Mills. I did not think he was gonna bond with the Baratheon like that.
No, not at all, especially when they actually, wind up dancing. But all the food stuff is done well here because Dunk does say when he's kind of pitching egg at the end, he's like, oh yeah, all of his foods are basically salted fish, salted beef. And that could explain, a little bit of the situation he had going on. And so egg cooking fish the proper way seems like he would help. But it makes sense. Like this dude's obviously got to be very hungry that he's eating all this other crap. So he's got to really be into this. But it sets up the very tense scene that they undercut when Baratheon's like, all right, what is this gigantic dude doing here? Like, he's like, hey, you
Right.
got a message? You got something for me? No. You here to kill me? No. Then what the hell are you doing
Yeah,
here?
what are you
And
doing in
Dunk's
my
just
tent?
supper. And
Yeah.
then they all kind of take a minute, and then just like he's like, you know what, that actually makes sense. And then from there it just flows and turns into a very fun thing. Definitely didn't have when Baratheon's like, all right, hurry up and eat so we can dance. And he asked Dunk about dancing. I did not have Dunk being like, oh yeah, dude, of course I dance. I did not have that on my bingo card. That was a very fun scene.
Super fun scene. But dude, what else was crazy is I did not have him wearing Baratheon's
Oh, the antler
crown.
crown.
And actually the antler crown was pretty cool. Let's just talk about that for a second. That was awesome. It was way bigger than I remember. I don't think the Baratheons, like even Stannis, his was not that big, not that cool. I don't even think Roberts was that cool, but I digress here. This was awesome, dude. I did not see Dunk wearing that. I was like, holy shit, he's really bonding with this guy. And I love the whole thing where Lionel's like, I'm quite drunk, and he's asking for like serious advice, and he's just like, I'm quite drunk, and walks away. But I didn't have that on my card either, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, but that's a great move by Lionel. Like most people who are too drunk will try to give you bad advice, even if they are blackout drunk at that point. I give dude credit for being like, I honestly don't know, man. Like, talk about knowing your limits, right? He
Yeah,
brushed kind of right up against him, but he did. And overall, I think they did a great job with him because the Baratheons, obviously, that we know we've gotten a little bit of introduction in House of the Dragon, but not a ton. So mostly we know the brothers from Game of Thrones, and they were also wildly different, right? Like you had the three Baratheon brothers who could not have, they almost had nothing in common at all between them. So it's kind of interesting here to get more insight into this family. But I think like he reminds you probably the most of Robert, right? Like he is kind of because he's
yeah,
having a good time here. He feels like he is
yeah.
more a man of the people, and it just seems to kind of work here. So I'm very excited about him as a character. He is again most definitely in the novella, but it seems like they're anticipating a bigger role for him here, and I think they kind of hit it out of the park here. I mean, he probably comes the closest to anybody we have seen to give you that, like, remember, like, I don't want to give exact situation, but like Tyrion, like between like end of season 3 and like mid season 5 or whatever, when he just went on like the bender of all benders, more or less. Like he's got that
Yes.
energy, right, Sir Lionel? He's got that like Tyrion on a bender energy, and I'm just there for it.
100%. And again, it's nice to not have it just be machoism and cruelty and using their positions to enrich themselves and hurt everybody else. It was kind of cool to see just kind of like this pure party, have a good time, type feel to it.
Yeah, I'm again very excited going forward here because that is the one thing, again, it's a lot of a two-hander here. There are other characters, but the majority of the focus is on Duncan Hay, and we don't have to build this out to the point where, the opening credits take 30 minutes because you need to include everybody. But I do think that you do need, at least a shallow bench here of solid supporting characters. 'Cause that's one thing Game of Thrones has already been good at through 2 shows. And I think here, they're definitely showing early on, right? Like I think we're going to have some of these supporting characters that are going to be fun to check back in on, and I'm excited for that. I just wish we could get Braun here somehow, right? It feels like Lionel Baratheon and Braun would also get along famously. Like he could slide in with Tyrion and Braun and like make that a trio, and I would watch that comedy tour. I would go to that.
100%, dude. That would be awesome. I mean, anything with Braun is like, yes, that would push this over the top for me.
And we did get the one little scene with Manfred Dondarrion. That's the dude that Dunk was trying to find earlier in the episode. He finally catches them here with the ladies, and you do get the whole great gag about being hung like a Dornishman or whatever, which was a lot of fun. But you get the idea, like, all right, this dude probably going to be a dick, right? So again, a little bit probably of foreshadowing there, but they went out of the way, and it also gave you one last really nice flashback or cutback, whatever you want to call it here, where Dunk talks about Sir Pennytree being wounded, and they just cut real quick to like someone like ripping an arrow out of his gut or whatever. That was pretty cool. Like, and again, that's something they would never have done on Thrones proper or House of the Dragon. So I thought that added a little bit of an element here. Again, something they can do, yeah, a little bit different on this show maybe than they've done in the first two.
I think we're ready to kick off the award tour, starting with our favorite alternate episode titles. The Hedge Knight, it's pretty damn solid and a super appropriate title. So, what do we have to offer the people for episode 1?
I think we'll just have a little bit of fun with it in that case. Just have 3 alts here. Try and have a little fun with it. The first one here, let's just go with A Party at the Laughing Storm. tried to make it laughing storms, but it didn't sound as good with the possessive there. But I think that might be the highlight of the episode here when he goes to a little party in Sir Lionel's tent here. So party at the laughing storm. And Sir Dunk is not half man, half amazing. No, no, no. He is half man, half giant. I don't think we mentioned that gag from Raymond, but that was another fun one. I think one of the only obvious Game of Thrones call outs here, because obviously Tyrion was the half man. And so you're like, why is he calling this giant dude half man? Because he's half man, half giant. And then finally, let's just cross it over with Lethal Weapon, just for the hell of it. I'm getting too tall for this shit because that feels like what Roger Murtaugh would say if he was about like 8 foot tall or whatever Sir Dunk is. So there we go. There's our alts for this one. Party at the Laughing Storm, half man, half giant, and I'm getting too tall for this shit.
Yeah, a couple good ones in there, but I got it. My vote goes, so I'm getting too tall for this shit. Next up on the award tour, we're highlighting our favorite moment or scene from episode one, The Hedge Knight. I'm up first, Hill Mills. I got to go with just Dunk hanging out with Sir Lionel Baratheon. This was just all the fun. There was other good moments in the episode, but to me, this was just the highlight of the show for me. And I think it really kind of spoke to where they were going. Now, obviously, it's episode one. We'll see if things change, but it kind of had a lighter feel to it, and not as heavy, certainly as what we've seen with the first episode of Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, right? So definitely pretty cool there. I had a good time with that.
I had that on my list, most specifically the final moment there we talked about where he's like, "Yo, yeah, I'm just too drunk to deal with this right now." But you went with Sir Lionel, so I'm just gonna go with the scene where Dunk's trying to check in with Plumber, and Plumber acts like he's giving him the ninth degree here. Oh well, did anybody see you get knighted or whatever? And then he literally says, "I'm just fucking with you." And I think that's a good way to kind of set the tone for the entire show. Funny, that scene is more or less in the books, and he almost had me going for a second there. I'm like, wait a minute, is this going to go a different way than I remember this going? So that was a good time here. Shout out our guy Plumber there. I looked at, I've seen that actor before. The only thing I could definitely place him in, he did show up on the fifth episode of Peaky Blinders, but I don't know if that's what it is. But he's got one of those faces. I feel like he's that guy. So maybe he's been in other stuff.
Yeah, and somebody give that man a throat lozenge, and he was really
Yeah, he
hacking
was
him up
hawking,
there.
dude. That was
He,
that was some
definitely,
serious logie right there, man. Like I was expecting to hear like when they do the westerns and they'd spit in the spittoon and they had like that sound effect, like Looney
yeah,
Tunes would use it sometime when someone spits in the spittoon. I was almost waiting for that.
dude, there was levels to that loogie, dude. Like he had to go
Yeah, the
dig
sound
deep.
design
That
on
thing
that was
was
something else, man.
Yeah, that was there was levels to that loogie. Sticking with our favorites here. Next up, we've got our favorite quotes from the Hedge Knight Mills. It's your turn. Go first here. What you got?
I gotta decide if I want to go with the fun one or the serious one. This has been a fun show. Let's just go with the fun one. Give me the quote here when we get Sir Manfred talking about whether or not he said he was a Dornishman.
I was only a boy,
I
but
thought he said you were a Dornishman.
No, he said he's hung like a Dornishman.
No, I said I've hung Dornishman.
There's a lot of hanging Dorn going on there, so
Yeah.
I'm there for it. Hanging Dorn, hanging Dawn, close enough. I'm sure John Thundergun would approve. How about yourself, man? What was your favorite quote for this one?
Yeah, that was awesome. I hate to keep going back to it, but I got to go back to the interaction with Sir Lionel here. And I think this just kind of speaks to what this thing's all about here when he says,
Seven above gave you tallness, so be tall. Or I will name you a heretic and burn you.
the whole thing here is with him being tall, and you get to it kind of pays off at the end of this episode when he's when he kind of comes up with Sir Duncan the Tall. Really like that, but you also get the humor of Sir Lionel here, so it was a win for me.
And that one does also ring true to the book a little bit. Like Dunk is always kind of subconsciously, crouching over a little bit because he doesn't want his defining characteristic to be everyone thinks you're, this huge ass dude. Because sometimes, that people take connotations from that too. And he's like, he's a nice, friendly dude. He just wants to hang. Like, it's like a real big dog who's just a real big baby. Like, you know what I mean? That's not their fault. They're a gigantic dog.
Yeah, no, he's
He's
definitely
he's basically a humongous golden retriever. That's who
right.
Sir Dunk is basically.
Yeah, he's given giant golden retriever puppy vibes for sure.
Yeah, heavy G energy, dude. That heavy golden retriever energy.
1000%. We usually do some power rankings and hand out a classic MVP, but we're going to change things up a bit for a Night of Seven Kingdoms. Instead of rankings and awards, we're each going to give a dynamic duo for each episode. Mills, break down the rules for how this is going to work.
We're basically going to go with kind of a two-tier MVP system here, a knight and a squire. Our knight has to be one of Dunk or Egg. I think that's the only way you can do it. They're going to be on their own tier most episodes. So for our knight, we have to pick every episode, whether we thought Dunk or Egg had the better episode, whether we enjoyed them more. The criteria is our own. And then our squire can be anybody else from the episode. Only rules are that we can only take a person twice as our squire for the 6 episodes. And we can use a group if we want, as long as we both agree, like, yeah, if they appear together in every scene, it's probably okay to go ahead and count them as a group. You don't have to pick. I think it's my turn to go first. For my knight, I am going to go with Sir Dunk. I thought Egg had a good episode, but Dunk just had like 4 or 5 times the screen time. He had a lot more to do. Everything in the tent was very fun here. So I'm going with Sir Dunk as my knight. And then for my squire, I'm worried I'm going to run out of uses too early, but I got to go with Sir Lionel Baratheon here. The Laughing Storm was absolutely killing it. I would give honorable mention to the camp follower girls there and to Plumber, the intake guy there. Both were very fun, but my squire is going to have to be Sir Lionel Baratheon. Jamie G, how about yourself? Who's your dynamic duo for the Hedge Knight?
Yeah, I got to give my night to Dunk. I thought it was just the way we kind of got to know him. Obviously, he's going to be a super important character going forward here. So enjoyed kind of breaking down his character and kind of seeing it, just how they set the tone for him going forward. And then for my squires, I got to go with the camp girls, the women, the redhead there. I mean, they were fantastic, and it added some fun humor to this one, and it was a different kind of feel for an HBO show, right? I'm sure they'll get to all the crazy stuff that HBO does soon, but I liked it for this one. So I'm going with the Camp Girls for my squire.
I like that very much. Like I said, they were honorable mention. They were very funny, but at the end they did kind of like show a little bit of consideration to Dunk. They took him a little bit seriously here, so we'll see if they come back around. But they were very fun in this first episode.
The final stop here on the award tour is our episode grades. We are going to grade each episode of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms on a scale of 0 to 100 flagons of ale. Mills, I'm up first here. Let's see here. I've got this thing about 80% filled. I'm giving it 80 flagons of ale. Cheers to the episode. I thought it was really good, but it was mostly kind of like a setup episode. Definitely looking forward to a little bit of action here, and getting something going within the storyline and just immersing myself in this world in a lighthearted way. 80 flagons of ale to start here. We'll see where it goes from there.
I was right about there with you after my first watch. I think initially I'm like, yeah, this is probably like an 80, 81, something like that. After having watched the episode 5 or 6 times at this point, I'm going to bring it up to an 84. I think it was a very solid episode for all the work it had to do. And I am impressed by some of the additions that they made here. So I'm going to give them a little bit of extra credit for that. So while I don't think it's going to be, hopefully it's not obviously the best episode of the season or the series, I think it was very solid, did its job in a good fashion here. So it's like a solid B here. So I think 84 right in there. Jamie G is at 80. So if you got 80% of a flagon, you're still doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the other 20% is just froth anyway, so we're really nailing
Yeah, a
it
little bit
here.
ahead on top there. And I really can't do much with predictions here because I have read the novellas, but we'd like to do a little bit of something. So I'm just going to ask Jamie G a couple of questions here, see what he is thinking. Jamie G, do you think we're going to learn more about Egg's backstory?
100%. I like that they teased it just a little bit with Dunk kind of already getting confused. Where wait, that wasn't your mom, and wait, you're not an orphan. I really think we're gonna kind of get a little bit of that each and every episode. I don't know that it'll be immediate. I think they'll kind of keep teasing the way they are, but I like that strategy. But yes, I do think we will.
How about the Targaryen dude from the inn? Like he kind of like he's hammered, but he implies that like he's seen Dunk in his dreams or something like that. Do you think that's gonna be a thing, or is that maybe like a teaser for season 2 or something?
I don't know, man. I think that's going to be something in classic Game of Thrones style. It wouldn't surprise me if they like end season one with that coming to be, and then we don't really get a finality. But they don't do that for no reason. He was absolutely hammered. Like I've seen that level of hammer. That was big time hammered. But I definitely think there's going to be something coming back there, and I'm curious to see. And these Targaryens, dude, they're all crazy, man.
Yeah, that should be fun. I wish they had like increased drinking ability because it feels like Dunk is just one of those dudes. He's so gigantic. Like who could actually keep up with him, right? It would
Well,
be
it's like
like
Andre the
drinking with
Giant, dude. He could
or
outdrink
Ray
anybody.
Boggs. Like, yeah, I mean, they're
Yeah,
the only people who can really drink with each other, I think, at this point.
right.
And we see that Dunk's a little bit nervous around the ladies. Do you think maybe he gets a love interest or romantic plot, something like that, before the end of the season?
I think he has to. It's kind of this innocence of like my first girlfriend kind of feel to it, which makes it, I guess, cute or whatever. But like, I definitely think so. They kind of highlighted it with his interaction with the ladies earlier, and then kind of how he was looking at the puppeteer there, definitely with those big old eyes. So I definitely think he will.
Yeah, I mean the dude needs a lady friend here. And from the trailer, we know, and it's probably not a real spoiler here that Dunk's going to make it into the tournament. That's kind of like the point of the season here. How do you think he gets in? Who do you think is going to kind of like vouch for him, get him into this thing?
I think he's gonna, obviously just taking a swing here, but I think he's gonna actually do somebody a favor, and basically force them, like he's gonna be basically right place, wrong time, make a be involved in a situation, save somebody or do something for somebody, and that's kind of how they're gonna repay him. I think is through vouching for him.
I like that. I like that. I think that's very fair. And we heard Raymond talk with Dunk a little bit, like, who's going to face first. We've seen a couple of the guys here. Is there anybody that sticks out that we met here that you think Dunk might have to face off with first in the tournament?
Well, the obvious choice is the guy who was trying to bait him in, early to come and fight him, and then the cousin was like, sorry, man. I think that's kind of the obvious one. I guess I'll go with that for right now, but I reserve the right to change that.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things. That's a Chekhov's gun scenario. You feel like they have to face off at some point. Maybe not, in the first round. I mean, maybe could it be Lionel Baratheon? Now of course that would be the ironic thing, right? Because they seem to have bonded now. So of course, if they are drawn against each other, then you got to do what you got to do, right? It's the tournament. They even kind of talked about that a little bit. Like he knows Dunk's in deep trouble if he loses. And on like a fun one here, what's your under or over here? Let's call it 5.5. How many jokes are made directly to his face about egg actually looking like an egg? Under over 5.5 throughout the season.
Throughout the whole season, there's 6 episodes, so that's
We didn't get
roughly
any in this one though, so
right.
only
So we would
five
need
left.
we would need that. Um, I'm gonna go over because I think once he starts kind of interacting with other people, he's gonna start getting it a lot. I'll go over. I'll go over here.
I mean, he does look like an egg, right? I'm not nuts here. Like, I don't think that was part of the casting profile, from what I understand. But with the shaved head and kind of like he's got like a, kind of like a big looking head, he looks like an egg a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Just a smidge.
Just a spit. I mean, well, again, that fits. That's the, you wonder why he's named Egg. Maybe it's just because he looks like an egg. And then finally, I teased it before here. Where do you think Sir Dunk, if he doesn't have it already, will find armor that fits him? Like, is he going to have to rob a train? Is he going to have to find one of the mountains forefathers or something like that? I mean, where is he going to find armor? If you just think about it, he needs it. He's gigantic. He doesn't have much cash right now. How's he going to get this done?
I think the ladies somehow are gonna help him. And I think it's going to be something where it doesn't actually fit, and he's kind of got to navigate that, but probably finds a way to win anyways. And it'll be some humor in that too.
Calling back to one of the my favorite Robert Baratheon lines where he's hammered talking to Ned and his armor doesn't fit him, so he tries to get his squire to bring him the breastplate stretcher, which obviously is a thing that doesn't exist, and he just is like, and Ned's like, "Oh, come on, dude! Like, give the kid a break here." So I like a little any callback to the breastplate stretcher. I am there for, and I think that's about it. Thank you very much for being here for this episode of Flagons and Dragons. We will be covering every episode weekly, most likely dropping on Tuesdays on YouTube, wherever you get your pods. We really appreciate you checking out the show. Any comments, questions, predictions, whatever, hit us up on social media. Drop it in the comments. Drop it on the YouTube video, wherever you're watching this. We really appreciate it. Thanks again for checking out the show. Flagons and Dragons is presented by Regular Dudes Watch Stuff. You can find our content wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Find us on social media at Dudes Watch Stuff and on the web at dudeswatchstuff.com. Nice and easy to remember, just like those flaps, FLAPS. Follow, like, and please subscribe. If you had fun, please remember to hit that thumb. I'm Magna Mills. He's Jamie G. That was one episode. We got more to go, though.
Till next time, keep your flagons full and your dragons high.